Hey Trevor, how's it
Marshall, how you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. Good to see you again.
Good man.
All right, so.
Ready for the tour?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay, so these are my two forges. This one here is forced air. I use it mainly for Damascus billets and stuff for making, large pieces of metal. This one here I use really only for forging knives. I don't do too much Damascus in that one.
Very cool. Was this Damascus forge, was that part of Bill Herndon's?
It is.
Set of tools?
This is the first forge I've ever owned, and I still have it. It's seen a lot of years of knife making.
Yep.
Bill made some spectacular knives in this forge, and it's an honor to have it.
Oh yeah, of course.
I love it. I do need to refurbish it probably, but it definitely does most of the work in here. The knives happen quickly. The Damascus
takes time.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's always nice to have tools from other makers, because especially the great makers, because it's like them being present in your shop and reflected in your work.
It does. It feels like that. I love, a lot of this tooling that you'll see in here came from Bill Herndon. And, I have my surface grinders, Red St. Cyrs.
Oh, nice.
To me, it's just, like you said, it's really cool to have tools that made so many, spectacular pieces.
Absolutely. So what do we got here?
This is a 178 pound pneumatic hammer. So it's self-contained. It's got all of its components in there. It's got an air compressor. It moves this 178 pound ram. This is one of my newer machines. Actually, you can probably tell because it looks newer. I got this in a very large press over there to speed up the process of making Damascus, because it can take a week to make a billet. And it speeds it up greatly. It took maybe 8 hours of forging down to 2 hours of forging.
Oh wow, that's a significant.
It really made a difference.
Significant change.
Yes.
And this is your treadle control?
It is. This is an Anyang hammer, made by Anyang USA in Texas.
Very cool. And then we got another hammer here. This looks like a Little Giant.
Okay, so this is a 50-pound Little Giant hammer. So it's an American-made mechanical hammer. Company's not around anymore, but they, they still, you can still buy parts for it from, I guess some guys bought the Little Giant rights, and now they sell parts to it.
Oh, that's cool. Well, it's nice that it's supported. It looks like you got a set of combination dies on it.
I do. Yeah, in the beginning, before I got these other tools, this hammer made all of my knives. It wasn't ideal for making Damascus because it has a set. You have to set the height of the hammer for whatever it is you're working on. So if you set it to make billets of Damascus, you can't switch over very easily and make knives, which that hammer over there will allow you to do. But this tool I got from Bill Herndon is another Bill Herndon tool that I'm so happy to have, and it has history. This was purchased in early 1940s by the U.S. Navy, so this machine worked in World War II.
Very cool. It's nice when you get to know a little bit about the history of a machine, because I mean that can be a journey of its own oftentimes.
Well, that's the cool thing about the new the new the little giant people. You give them the serial number of your machine, and they tell you all about, when it was made, where it went, and all that kind of stuff. That's how I found out that this was a U.S. Navy.
Very cool. All right, why don't you tell us a little bit about your anvil here?
This is another tool I got from Bill Herndon. I'm told it's a 300-pound anvil. I never weighed it, but it has this wooden anvil stand is actually filled with concrete. So it's really heavy, and it's really stable.
Now I understand why you never weighed it.
Yeah.
So what make is it?
This is an O'Dwyer number 3. You can't really find these anymore, because I've tried to find it, and they're just not available.
Do you have any idea how old it is?
I do not, although I'd love to know. If anybody knows, please tell me.
All right.
And
yeah, if any of you know how old something like an O'Dwyer is, mention it in the comments.
And this here I got also from Bill. It's a cool little thing. It allows me to take any of these press dies and put them here and use them as hand tools.
Oh, okay.
So I have a bunch of those.
Very cool.
I use this predominantly for, straightening, like chef's knives, because once they get the foot of the knife, it's very difficult. So oftentimes they'll be cocked off the bolster, so I can just lay it flat.
Oh, very nice. All right. So what do you have next for us?
I have a 50-ton Anyang forge press here, hydraulic press.
All right. And so what do you use this for?
I use it mainly for making Damascus.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of dies. This is the only die I have for this. So actually was a flat die, and I kind of ground this to be a drawing. So it's a combination drawing flat die. So that drawing die, that curve lets you stretch the metal out in length? Yeah, I tried doing it just with the flats, and it will, but it was splitting the ends of my billets. Okay. So I these were not that easy to grind because they're pretty heavy. And you want them, pretty identical for something like this. So you don't get weird, curvy, billets. But yeah, it works much better now. It's great. Okay, and it looks like it's a pretty fancy system here. This here is not an Anyang product. This is a Coal Iron Works product. It's a digital press controller. Okay. It really helps. This press moves fast. It's like 2.5 inches per second or something like that. Oh, wow. So that's fast. Yeah, just with the existing foot pedal that I got with this machine, there's not a lot of control. I'm not used to presses moving that quickly. So this allows you to do a lot of different things. Set depth and height, set. It'll run automatic. It's pretty cool. We'll see that here in a minute when we start forging. Oh, awesome. I can't wait to see that. This looks like quite the impressive machine. All right, and what else do you have to show us? We have a 25-ton hydraulic forging press here, set up to do a foot pedal and manual. This press I got with a whole bunch of dies for this press. This, unlike that one, I have many dies for this one. I have squaring for, forming, metal forming, and also like surface texturing. Have some Damascus dies here, like for raindrop pattern. Oh, very nice. And, a bunch of others. This is like gold, these things, when you want to buy them, they're pretty expensive. Oh, I can imagine. They look kind of complex to make. These were all made by Bill Herndon. All right. So, I have dies in there. I don't even know what they do. But I do a lot of work still on this press when it comes to forging knives. So you still use this even when you have this big beast of a press here? Yeah, initially when I bought this one, I thought maybe I would sell this one, but there's just there's no way. I use this one probably more than that one. That one really just makes forging of billets much faster. Right. And and I'm sure
as you get more time on this big press, you're going to learn how to use it in new and improved ways, or possibly get dies for it.
When I make some dies, for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I'd love to make like a hot cut for feather Damascus for that, because I have a lot more clearance in there. You know, I can make a much taller billet than this one here.
So what are the limits on this one as far as like how tall of a stack you can put on it?
About 6 inches.
About
a
6
6-inch
inches.
stack is, and I really have to, you know, I have to bring this ram uncomfortably close to the top, because it has these automatic switches here for their shutoffs. So like when I reach a certain point, if you raise the switch too high, it will just try to pull the ram through the the cylinder.
Through the cylinder.
Because it doesn't know when to shut
stop.
off.
Right.
So, yeah, later on we're going to use this. I'm going to use this die here to form a bolster on a integral.
So we're going to get to see this one work as well.
Absolutely.
Awesome. That will be very interesting. This setup of press is what I'm more used to seeing, where your big one here, this is all new to me.
Yeah, this, you know, a lot of knife makers like a C-frame, and there are other companies that make really big, you know, heavy-duty C-frames, which is, I figure I already have a C-frame. And when it comes to C-frame, you're going to have a little bit of deflection of the carriage.
Right.
Just because of the way it works.
Physics is the thing.
Yeah, and this one, there's like zero deflection. So on the large press, it can make a very uniform billet, you know, whereas there's very little.
Right. Well, that's great. And anything else you want to show us here?
Oh, I got a couple surface grinders over here if you guys want to see that.
Yeah, would love to see it. Let's go check them out.
All right. The newest major tool that I've purchased, I just got this less than a year ago. This is a surface grinder also 6x18, but it's been converted from a stone to a belt.
Very nice.
Which it's not as precise as this machine over here, but it's a lot faster. I picked this up from Ava Gabranson, Red St. Cyr's, his widow. And it's really cool to have something that Red St. Cyr made knives with. But this really speeds up like surface grinding if I want to keep it flat. But you know, when I'm doing Damascus billet, especially feather, where I make a giant stack, if it's off a little bit when you crush it, it kind of wants to. So this makes them really nice and flat, really, really quick. It would take me a day to surface grind a feather billet or a 4-way or something like that on that machine, but this I can do it in minutes. So it's really great.
And I'm sure it's going to get you within a couple thousandths of an inch.
But if you want...
Right, yeah, that Challenger is capable of 1/10,000th of an inch.
Yeah.
But you got to spend some time to get there. Mm-hmm. Very cool. So what else do you have to show us?
All right, this machine here, this one sees a lot of work in this shop. Truthfully, every one of these machines, almost every one of them, is used on almost every knife that I make. So, but you know, this is the primary workhorse grinder used for grinding all bevels and well, grinding everything. This is a TW90 made by Travis Wirtz, and it's 220. I don't really know how many RPMs, but it moves pretty fast. And
yeah, well, you got the VFD on it, so you can change your speeds no problem. Just the turn of a dial.
As you can see, it's set to 100 right there.
Right.
It sees most of its grinding at 100. And yeah, it hogs metal off, and I've had this since the very beginning. This is one of the
it's a
first
nice
things
grinder.
I purchased.
I wanted one for a little while, but it was a little out of my reach price-wise.
Well, you know, they're more expensive now. They were more,
oh, wow.
I mean, not much, but I mean, I don't remember what, I think I paid around $3,000 for it.
Wow.
Which now it's closer to $5,000, I think.
Right, yeah.
$4,600, something like that.
That's how much they were when I started looking at them, and I was like, I think I'll wait.
Travis's stuff isn't cheap, but it does work well.
Right.
You know, I haven't had any problems with this machine.
Nope, they're good.
I wondered how much I would actually use some of the things that this does. It turns out I use it a lot. So
yeah. Well,
I'm glad I got it.
The grinder, the belt grinder, it doesn't matter whether you're a bladesmith or a stock removal guy. The blade grinder is one of the few machines that is the heart and soul of a knife maker. Yeah,
I mean, I you know, some of the people that have taught me over the years how to make knives, like Mike Williams, he's a master smith. Talks about, when we started, we didn't have no grinders, we used draw files, and I'm just like, oh man, that sounds rough, yeah.
Yeah.
Glad we have grinders these days.
And then this is some of the accessories here for
Sure,
it.
sure.
Very cool.
Got a 10-inch wheel over there for hollow grinding, which I don't typically do much of, but you know, once in a while. That's a rotary platen, which is it's really great for, you know, making handles and stuff like that, or you know, convex grinds. And that there is the one that I use to do that little treatment on my integral bolsters, where it, you know, the blade grows out of the bolster and it has that little swoopy.
Yep.
That does a great job.
And this is awesome, having a platen attached to the small wheel, because that's one of the things I hate about the small wheel is you can often get in too deep and deform that radius you're trying to grind.
Sure.
With having that platen there, you can ride on this and just push in to where
it makes the
you want to
blade
be.
even, you know, with whatever it is you're grinding into the bolster. It's wonderful, really.
All right, and next stop on our tour.
Well, there's right next to you. That's a disc sander. Every one of the chef's knives I make gets disc sanded pretty extensively. I've learned that, you know, I can actually disc sand up to 1500.
Oh,
which
wow.
doesn't alleviate hand sanding, but it certainly mitigates
Helps it along.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so what's next?
Well, this is 10-inch LeBlanc Regal lathe, engine lathe, I think. Not much of a machinist. Most of the work this does is making pommel nuts for Bowie knives that have, you know, butt plates that, you know, require a pommel nut. Though this is probably the most versatile tool in the shop.
Yeah.
They say that this is the only tool that can remake itself, which sounds, I mean, this would probably be a thing to do, but
oh yeah, I mean, lathes are incredibly handy and considerably underrated, but I get what you're saying. You have limited use for it. That's not uncommon. A lot of knife makers, they will buy a machine, a big old expensive machine, for one step.
That's exactly what I did. Yeah, for making pommel nuts, but it makes a wonderful pommel nut.
Yeah, I bet it does.
I've seen guys do it with like a drill. You know, they'll lock a drill in a vise and just kind of, you know, fashion it. But you know, I wish I'd have seen that before I bought this. I might have went that route.
Oh, I think you made the right decision, because lathes offer a level of precision you aren't going to get from a drill and clamped in a vise.
For sure. And all my friends that are machinists like to come over and use it.
So, and I see we have a big old horizontal bandsaw here.
Yeah, this here is old. This one here, I think, is almost as old as I am. And this is definitely the cheapest tool that I have. I mean, because I got this for $100.
Oh, wow.
I didn't get anything, nothing else in here was $100. But this one, yeah, some guy had it in his backyard and he's like, yeah, it needs some work, but I'll give it to you $100. And I said, yeah, okay, I'll take it. And I replaced the bearings and stuff. But this is great because all the new ones you can buy that are anywhere near reasonably priced, you know, like in a 3,000 or less range, you can't put a 1-inch blade on them.
Right.
The wheels aren't big enough. This isn't really made for 1-inch, but it's made for 3/4, so I can get a 1-inch on there. And I do a lot of precision cuts, especially with like mosaic Damascus. I need like repetitive 30-degree or 33-degree cuts. And if they're off, then I'm wasting metal trying to get it back flat and having them fit together again. So put a 1-inch blade on there, and it doesn't wander or anything like that. I love this saw. I hope it lasts forever.
Very cool. Over here, it looks like is where you're set up for some heat treating and milling.
This is the heat treat oven. I bought as big a one as I could afford because I figured, you know, just get as big a one as you could get. It's Paragon. It's programmable. Does a lot of cool things. I often use it to anneal stuff because, you know, if I make a billet like I was talking about with the bandsaw, you can't really cut a billet at 30. I mean, you use a whole bunch of blades. So I anneal stuff. This can, you know, do a pretty professional anneal. Like I'll set it to 1800 and I'll set it to cool at 50 degrees per hour until
nice
it hits like 400.
Program it to just ramp down.
Ramp down. And then, you know, I pull it out of there. It's as soft as it could be and cuts really nice on the bandsaw.
Very cool. And it looks like the last thing here you got is a
mill.
milling machine.
The mill, and in it is that little end mill or big end mill that I was talking about before.
Oh, okay.
This will really eat up any kind of wood. So I only use it for wood, and it makes all of my tang slots for me.
Okay.
But yeah, this machine does a lot of different stuff for me, like slotting guards, facing stuff. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, the last time, I would have loved to have had that. The last time I slotted a handle for a blind tang in ironwood, I was using chisels and just driving them down in there, where you do the series of holes side by side and go out and chisel out the webs. That was a nightmare, and I ended up, on one of the knives, I ended up ruining a $150 block of wood.
I used to use this. It's a hand broach that I made from a file. And yeah, I didn't like to use ironwood when I had to do this because it was really nasty.
Right.
But with this, I just drill, I drill 2 holes, at a 1/4 inch. I make all my tangs a 1/4 inch thick. And then I connect them with this, and it's makes a really nice, perfect tang
then you
slot.
just got to go in and file down the corners. And
Well, actually, I round all the edges on my tank so they fit
oh, okay.
really nice.
That's smart. That's probably a lot less work.
It is.
Well, very cool. So how about we fire up the forge and watch you work a little bit?
Okay, sounds great.
All right. So what are you doing here?
I'm forging the tip in on this integral bolster chef's knife. It's a feather pattern, so you want to make sure that you get the tip as close to the center as possible, so the center of the feather remains centered from
so that center spline runs through the shape of the blade.
Right. You want to try to get it to come out at the tip. You can see here that little split,
Yeah.
which I'll grind off, or maybe I'll just pinch it off when I'm forging this.
Can you tip it so our camera can catch the little split here?
Yeah. So that's where I want the point to be at, and you can sort of see the pattern in there.
Very cool.
But yeah, then I'll end up like forging that off or cutting it off.
So these blades, they heat up pretty quick compared to a billet of Damascus.
Absolutely, yeah. When they're this thin especially.
Right.
This one's pretty close to being finished outside of this tip forging and maybe a little straightening. But yeah, a billet of Damascus, depending on its size, can take. You got so much work into it by the time you actually get it in the forge.
Right.
That I don't play games with it. If it looks a little cold to me for some reason, I'll let it sit in there for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe even an hour before I'm, going to take the first.
Right. Now, do you forge your integral bolsters into final shape, or do you just forge them out as a block like they are here?
I forge them as a block shape, yeah, and then grind it. You could try to do that, and I've thought about trying to forge those shapes in there. It just, if you do, there's some sort of a problem, like some kind of, I want to call it slag inclusion from my welding days, but some scale that's gotten pounded a little too deep. You don't have a lot of room to work with at that point.
Okay.
It's safer to grind it in.
Well, and then the grinding is going to cut through the layers more and give you a more vibrant pattern too, I would imagine.
For sure. There we go again. good. All right.
So I see you got a in-progress piece here.
Yes, sir. I love this.
It looks aggressive.
I mean, I would love to carry a knife like that around. Might like frighten people, you know, in restaurants and things.
I bet there's some bikers that would agree with you.
Yeah, see, that's the kind of stuff I like to make, you know. Wild, crazy looking. Are you familiar with cast knives?
Yeah.
By Claudio Sobral? I love their stuff because it's so out there, you know. It's aggressive and cool, you know.
Yep. All right, you ready for the...
Yes, sir. We're almost there.
It's amazing how much fine control you can have with a hammer when you're forging.
Oh yeah, this here, it allows you, I mean, certainly a lot more than something like that, but yeah, and I wouldn't consider myself an excellent forger by any means, you know. Like guys like Lynn Ray forge those like fully integral blacksmith knives with guards and everything. Like, that's next level. That's really cool stuff. And I'm probably good with that because I'm gonna have to grind out that little tip anyway.
Okay.
So just go ahead and make that flat and straight.
All right.
Which is really easy to do with this machine.
Oh, I bet.
Really make stuff nice and flat and nice and straight. As long as you hold it straight anyway.
Yep. Yeah, and we were taping KC recently, and he was talking to us beforehand about how you got to be careful to keep everything parallel with the dies because it can get out of control really fast.
And I love his machine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the biggest hammer I've ever seen actually in person running, you know?
Wow.
It's really a great, his is about the size of 3 of these, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I need a little bit of tune-up here.
Okay.
You can see that. It's kind of, I'd rather that not be like that. Unfortunately, it's going to need a little more hammer work. It's kind of...
Oh, I can see the saddle and the edge there.
Yeah, it's kind of going down. That happens when, you know, you have different thicknesses in the blade and it wants to bend it one way or the other.
Right.
There's a few ways of correcting this. I'm going to do it the easy way as long as my tongs will hold it tight enough.
Okay.
I'm just going to take it, I'm going to smack it on the anvil. And hopefully that'll bring the spine up and bring the bow out.
Yeah.
And it won't deform the edge or the spine with hammer marks that will then need to be removed.
Oh, wow.
It's coming there, it's coming. That looks pretty good.
That's kind of crazy how the metal can just move like that.
When it's hot, it gets pretty supple. That is good.
All right. So is this how you cool them, or?
Yeah, I'm just gonna let it cool here. It needs to be thermocycled and stuff. A lot of people do that with the forge, but I thermocycle or normalize.
With the oven?
Yeah, that way I can get really exact temperatures. And I like to do, I found that sometimes when you etch your knife, there's like a weird spot on it.
Right.
That's oxidation or decarb.
Right, yeah, decarb.
And a way to really prevent that from happening, I found, and somebody just told me this, so I don't really understand the science behind it, but if you take it up to 1800 degrees, after all this is done, and let it sit for about 20 minutes, and then step down. So then I'll do 1800, 1500, 1400, 1300, sometimes even like 1250 as a cycle of normalizing, and I don't get those spots. So whoever told me that was right. I don't remember who that was, but it seems to work. So I do that on pretty much every knife, especially the chef's knives, because they're really thin, and if there's some kind of decarb or something on there, and grinding it off is not always possible.
Right.
So
completely understandable. All right, so now you're gonna show us a little bit on grinding one of these.
Yeah, I'm just gonna finish grinding, or well, finish this part of the grinding on this chef's knife. It just needs it needs to get a little thinner through the edge here.
Okay.
Spine's pretty good, but the edge can use it. And I do this a little bit unconventionally. I grind it like this. This was taught to me by David Lish.
Oh, okay.
I've learned a lot of things from, and it really helps with keeping it straighter, keeping grinds more.
Not having that 2-inch wide belt mark in there.
Not having like it a little bit low here, a little bit high here. This kind of, especially at the end, in the beginning when I'm hogging material, I use a push stick and a table and I grind it. But when you get down to this point, there's not much room to fix anything you might cause by doing that. So this is much safer as far as goes. And these are all heat treated already, so you got to be a little bit careful with the...
Right, you don't want to burn any of the carbon out.
No. So
all right.
Ready?
Let's see it work.
All right.
This technique works really well, it looks like, for showing you where your high and low spots are.
Sure, you see there? That's low. And that comes from this vertical grinding.
Right. Looks like you're a little low in here.
This will fix that, and then I disc sand everything to a pretty high, so it ends up really nice and flat.
So how many hours do you think you usually have in on the grinder for a knife like this?
Oh, on this grinder, probably at least three hours. I mean, and that's moving at a pretty fast clip. I don't really try to rush them, you know, because I just want to make them as good as I can. And
Right.
rushing them can cause
Problems.
issues.
Yeah. Yeah, it's already pulling some of those low spots out.
I want to see that gone, and then I'll switch to the other side.
And like that, it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. And you know, a lot of people grind with gloves. I don't.
Yeah, I don't either.
Because for one, I think it's dangerous, and for two, it's pretty easy to burn your steel. Like when you feel it start getting hot, it's too hot.
Right.
Put it in the water.
Okay, so now we're going to be doing the other side. All right. How many hours do you think is left in a knife like this before it's done?
Let's see, probably at least a couple days worth of hours, you know, because it needs at least 3 hours over here. I go through, let's see, 120, 320, 500 or 600, depending on what I have, 800, 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 grits over here, and that's really to kind of lower the amount of hand sanding that I have to do. Then I'll do the bolster treatment, which doesn't really take that long to grind in the rough shape. Then prepare the handle block, get it glued on there, and then do all the shaping and polishing on the handle, then the etching. I mean, I would at least 3 days. I mean, but probably more than that. Probably.
Yeah.
I'd actually have to time it. I don't probably keep enough track of my time.
Right.
You know. So you were asking where we go after grinding?
Yes.
You know, there's several steps in this process. Here I have one of my handles. We're gonna do some hand sanding on it.
All right.
I like to hand sand these things up to like 3,000 grit.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a labor-intensive process, but it, you know, when you polish them, they really shine. You know.
Right.
And I've noticed, I've tried, you know, polishing it like 1,000 grit and stuff. It just doesn't.
Right.
3,000 is the number.
Right.
Me.
And when you polish that high, you don't need to apply any products to it, like stain or varnish, like people generally associate with woodworking.
No, it's yeah. I don't put anything on it. I actually wax them after they're polished, just to kind of keep it. You know, I use like bowling alley wax for these, or for the kitchen knives, I use some other stuff that's more food safe than the bowling alley wax. But the sheen on these handles is all just,
right.
It's just the wood. I see a lot of people using stuff like True Oil and, you know, these kind of things, but I like to just polish them.
Right. I'm the same way. Now, is something like this a process that you would use PPE, you know, like a respirator or something normally?
Not for hand sanding generally. I mean, if I were, you know, some materials like carbon fiber or something, I would.
Right.
And gloves and everything, because that stuff's really nasty. But this is ironwood, and definitely when you grind it, you'd want to wear PPE for sure.
Oh, for sure. But I imagine the dust's heavy enough it doesn't really get airborne with hand sanding.
Yeah, it mostly ends up all over my clothes. So.
Okay.
I don't really think I breathe too much.
Well,
you can really smell it when you're grinding it. If you know, when you take off the respirator or whatever, it's like, ooh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's see how you do this.
See, this handle has a lot of sharp lines in it.
Right.
I consider that to be a feature of this knife. I really like the way they look, so you got to be pretty careful not to run them over. You can move these lines around just with, I mean, this is 1,000 grit, so not so much, but like when you're doing the 320s and the 400s, 500 even,
All right.
you can move these lines. So you want to, look at it a lot and make sure that they're still symmetrical.
Right.
Just try to keep these lines nice and straight and even on both sides. See here, it has a little bit of a, which I will fix by
This vise is really cool because it just lets you rotate everything in place.
Yeah, this is it's a knife vise. This particular one is made by Trojan Horse Forge, and I have to say I really love it. They come in a variety of kind of different, how do you want to say, like quality levels. I think this one here is really a very high quality one. This side I use for my chef's knives because it has like a table with adjustable heights and stuff, so I can put my integral bolsters in there and adjust the screws to support the blades when I'm hand sanding them.
So you're really just using like a sanding stick in there.
I have a variety of things. Like these are for woodworking. I got them, I think, from Rockler. They come in these round ones, and then I have some, like triangular ones here for getting in little like places,
Tight little areas.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, I find these are really helpful. For flat areas, I'll just wrap my sandpaper around a file, and that works just fine. But for these kind of swoopy radius areas, those round ones are great.
And roughly, when you're trying to get that 3,000 grit finish that you're talking about, roughly how long does it take to sand out from a ground handle coming right off the grinder to having that fantastic finish?
Longer than I would like, several hours. It really depends on the handle. Like with something like this, I'm usually sanding on it for a couple days.
Okay.
Because of just the defined lines that it has, and you just want to be really careful around them. A lot of my other handles, like for chef's knives, they don't have like defined lines. I'll belt sand them up to 2,000.
Right.
On a slack belt, because I can, it works fine. But with something like this, I really feel like these lines are a feature that makes this knife really pretty. So I try to take care. Yeah.
Now, do you have to worry about the directions you're sanding? I mean, do you want to cross grain sand or sand with the grain? I mean, there's a lot of different techniques woodworkers use. Does that apply to knife making?
It does. Mostly for me, I just want to make sure that I got all of the scratches from the previous grits out. So what I'll do, like you'll see, I'm going straight here, up and down with the grain. On the next grit, I will go diagonally.
Okay.
And that way I'll know. You can see the scratches.
You'll see them show through.
So it helps me to be certain that I've removed all the scratches from the previous grits.
And what grit are you at now?
This is 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah, this was just, I finished this handle on the grinder at 320. So I went from 320 to 500 to 800, and now this is 1,000.
So it's a slow climb through the grits.
Sure. Yeah, and then I'll after this I'll do probably 1,200 and then 1,500, and then probably just go to 3,000 after 1,500.
Right. Typical rule of thumb is you can double the last grit that you used. But I know down in the coarser grits, sometimes you could end up spending a lot of time chasing those scratches out.
Yeah, I see a lot of people just kind of really make big jumps between them, but yeah, like you say, I say it takes forever to get rid of those scratches.
Right.
I feel like it actually goes faster with
the more grit you use.
Yeah.
All right. So you can have a couple of days worth of work involved in this this process, but it's worth it because you get that shine out of the wood.
Sure. Yeah, and the way I see it, these knives are going to be around for a long time.
Right.
Just try to make them as pretty as they can be. What's the lifespan of a knife?
Right.
A lot longer than yours. They may end up in a museum someday.
Right.
So you should spend as much time as it takes to make it as perfect as you can.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with that. Very nice. Looks like it's getting there.
Getting there, yes.
All right. And today we are in the shop of Trevor Morgan. We're going to go over what Trevor does here. He's a well-accomplished knife maker, and we're going to ask him some questions and get to know him. So, Trevor, how long have you been into knives?
Ever since I can remember. I've loved knives since I was a wee little kid.
Awesome. I've kind of been the same, though it was a little bit later in life when I got more serious into it. All right, so when did you start making knives?
I've been making knives for about 6 years.
6 years at full time, or did you start out part time?
Well, I transitioned from being a welder into making knives because I can't go out in the sun. The whole thing happened where I couldn't go out in the sun anymore, and I had to figure out something,
Right.
And there's not too many jobs, that you can get that are, legit. I mean, I don't want to work at McDonald's. You know
Right.
what I mean? I'm
Who
not saying
does?
that's anything wrong with that. I just don't. I've worked at McDonald's before, and I didn't like it. So,
Right.
I don't. So, I had to think of something that I could do, and I saw the Forged and Fire show, and I was like, I could do that.
So you're
I had
one of
no
the-
idea that it was going to be that hard. This in depth. I saw them doing knives in 3 hours, and I thought, I know all about working with metal. So
Right. Yeah, it's not a far stretch. I mean, a lot of knife makers have been welders. So this condition you have, what exactly is it?
it's a thing called porphyria.
Okay.
They call it the vampire disease because you can't go out in the sun.
So you're a vampire knife maker.
I actually thought about calling myself that, but I don't.
Right. I get
It's
it.
a little weird.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I realized that I would never be able to go in the sun again. So my welding career, I'm structural welder, and that's on site all the time. It's always outside. So I just I saw the show. I thought I could probably do that, and that's when I sort of decided on doing that. Was probably about 7.5 years ago.
Right.
It took me some time to accumulate the things that I would need to.
Oh yeah, tooling is
doing it.
always an ongoing process. When you started making knives, everything comes with time, but was there like a type of knife that you just had to make? If you're only 6 years into this, you've actually done quite well. Your skill level has grown to a very impressive level. That requires passion. So there had to be something that really pushed you to reach those levels. What was it?
I really love buoys and fighters. Just something about really any fighting knife. Knives are tools. So the ones that are made to be weapons have always excited me. They're always prettier. They're always just cooler looking. So,
Right.
I mean, those are the things I really enjoyed making. And lately I've made a lot of like chef's knives and kitchen knives in general. And I love that too. But the knives that I really love are buoys and fighters.
At what point did you decide you wanted to do Damascus?
Right away, in the very beginning.
Okay.
I mean, some of the first knives I made were actually Damascus.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I started making Damascus out of saw blades and whatever,
Right, the junk steel, the way everybody begins. With your Damascus, did you get any formal training? Was there like anybody that helped guide you through that? Because you can learn from a book, you can learn from YouTube videos, but really it's a lot more complex than people think.
I did. I actually went to the Bill Moran School of Bladesmithing in Texarkana. It's
Yes.
a American Bladesmith Society school, and I learned from Steve Dunn.
Oh, he's a great one.
Damascus class, yeah.
That's awesome.
And Bill Herndon also was a guy that helped me a lot, and he suggested from the very beginning that I start making Damascus.
Was forging always the path for you, or did you entertain the idea of doing stock removal?
I did some stock removal in the very beginning. When it comes to forging, you could sort of teach yourself how to do it, but stuff doesn't look exactly how it did in your mind when it comes out of that forge in the beginning. So
my very first forged knife, I remember it came out looking like a banana.
Yeah.
And the edge was on the wrong side, and I was just like, oh, this is horrible. But with your knife making, is there a goal that you have in mind, like a milestone that you want to achieve next?
I'm currently making knives for Mastersmith.
Okay.
And that's really the ultimate goal for me, is to attain that.
So you've already achieved your journeyman smith.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. When did you do that?
23. It was just a couple last year.
Oh, awesome. You like to do the buoys and fighters. You're doing a lot of kitchen knives. Are there any other types of knives that you're excited about moving into?
Well, I make a lot. I make hunters. I make neck knives. I make a lot of stuff. My table in the very beginning, it was a variety of things. EDC. I really like Bowie knives and fighters that are almost art knives, but they're not.
Right.
They're right there on the edge, but they're still usable. They're still. I don't think a lot of people probably go and chop trees down with them.
Right.
But you could.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the big things is knife making is very much an art form, but it's also a tool, and you can have something that looks like it belongs in a museum, and as long as it's made right, you could take it out, go to war with it, hunt animals, whatever you need it. I wouldn't want to scratch it, but in a pinch, that's what it is, a tool, as you said.
That's what I love. That's what I really like. There are certain smiths out there that really have it nailed. Meticulously perfect in every aspect.
Right.
And that's really the goal that I'm shooting for.
So you're shooting for that level of perfection.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Have you ever thought about doing folders?
Oh yeah, I've made a couple folders. I've worked with Mike Vagnino in folder making, and we're actually going to do another class coming up here probably before the end of the year. We're going to make an automatic sliding bolster action folder.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty cool, right? I'm really excited about it because, we made a slip joint, we made a lock back already. It's this kind of stuff that really gets me excited.
Right. Oh, I agree.
And I do. I really want to make folders. Design them, make them. I've got friends that pretty much exclusively make folders. Mike Vagnino makes a lot of folders. He still does fixed blade stuff, but and I do. I feel it's certainly a more marketable thing for a lot of people, because almost everybody carries a folder. All knife people do. You don't see a lot of people walking around with a Bowie knife strapped to their side. So
once you make that transition into folders, are you going to want to do, more EDC style folders, or are you going to want to go that more traditional route?
I think I'd probably go the Mike Vagnino, the stuff that people buy.
A little more carryable.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I like, frame locks and liner locks and stuff like that, automatics. It's not to say I wouldn't try to build those sort of historical knives, because I appreciate that too.
Yeah.
But I think, the titanium and all this kind of stuff, it's exciting.
The new materials, they allow you more levels of creativity, mm-hmm. I think.
And I see stuff that I'd love to work with, like crystal tie, and I know it's ungodly expensive, but I see it and I go, man, that's cool. I want to put that on a knife. I just, and folders are where that stuff really shines. I can't really think of a knife that I make currently that I'd put it on.
That sort of stuff, I think is reserved in fixed blades primarily for your strictly art knives.
Mm-hmm.
Things that aren't going to be used where it's just all about the flash and the glam of the design.
I agree.
Do you do 100% of your work, or do you outsource some of the processes?
I do it all. I do it all. It's tenet of the ABS. You know, I mean, if you're going to submit a knife for judging or something like that, it has to be 100% sole authorship. And I feel like, well, if that's the way that it is, then everything I do in all cases pretty much should be sole authorship. So yeah, all the Damascus, all of the, you know, everything is mine. And that's not to say that at some point, like I see a lot of people, they'll make a knife and then have it engraved by a real engraver, you know,
Right.
and yeah, it's not to say I wouldn't do that at some point, although I'd rather just learn how to engrave and do it myself.
Right.
But, you know, that's a whole other thing.
Sole authorship knives are the end-all be-all for a lot of knife makers, but
And collectors, I think.
yes,
As well.
but you know, not all of us have all the same skill traits. You know, I would love to learn to do engraving, but you know, they would get stick figures on their knives.
For sure. You know, that's kind of what's holding me back from learning it, because it's just like, okay, so I'm gonna. That stuff's expensive, the equipment. You know.
Right, and I'm not like, for me, I'm not afraid of the equipment expense. For me, it's the art. You know.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're gonna buy all of that stuff, and then it's gonna take how many years before you'd feel comfortable actually engraving a knife that you're gonna put on the table and try and ask someone to pay a lot of money for it.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, because hand engraving, that can easily add $1,000 to the price of a knife, you know, when it's done correctly. What are your thoughts on the different trends in the knife industry today, as far as the tactical EDC movement versus the bladesmith? How do you see that play out nowadays? Do you think there's more of a future for the hand forged? Do you think it's a dying art? You know,
I hope it's not a dying art. I mean, that's the, you know, the American Bladesmith Society's motto is to preserve the art of the forged blade.
right.
And I believe in that. Although I mean, the tactical stuff, I like it. You know, I mean, there are knives that I really want to buy. You know, that are definitely tactical, non-forged. You know, factory made. So some of them are pretty expensive.
Yes.
So I don't have them yet.
Right.
But I think there's probably room for both. Really. I mean, I don't see a lot of collectors wanting those things.
I'm sure you have your own secrets in heat treating. A lot of bladesmiths do.
I do what works, you know, and I do a lot of testing to see was this better than, you know, what I did before, and if it's not, then I'll stop doing that.
So what do you typically do in your tests?
A variety of things. You know, I mean, like I say, I'm ABS and I'm, you know, shooting for master smith, so you know, I'll do bend tests, I'll do chop tests, I'll do whatever. I mean, the knife ends up getting destroyed one way or the other, but you know, it's kind of fun to see what it can handle.
Right. So you always push whatever you're testing to the limits.
Oh yeah, eventually it'll be. I mean, tried to hammer knives through 52100 bars and stuff like that.
Oh, so you're actually trying to
Eventually it'll break.
push
But I
the
want to
knife
see
through steel.
what it takes to break it.
Right.
And you know, I mean, I've chopped wood with a chef's knife that's less than a 16th of an inch thick at the spine. You know, just to see what will happen. You know?
Oh wow.
They don't hold up well.
Was it Forged in Fire that drove you to join the ABS, or was there already a passion for that kind of old-fashioned style? What brought you to the American Bladesmith Society?
The man that I initially consulted with, and then I bought a lot of tooling from him, Bill Herndon.
Yeah.
And he suggested, you know, from the very beginning that I go to the ABS school and learn what I could. So I did. I went to the intro to bladesmithing class, and then I did handles and guards class, and then I did the Damascus class.
Okay.
All in Texarkana.
Other than Bill, any other mentors who have played a key role in getting you to where you are today?
Definitely David Lish. He's an ABS master smith. He makes some of the coolest knives. He's got a heavy background in blacksmithing.
Okay.
And he was a blacksmith for decades before he ever forged a knife. And he did a lot of ornamental blacksmithing and things like this, you know, the spiral staircases and things.
Right.
You know, it really shows in his work. And in, you know, from the very beginning when I started wanting to make knives, before I ever made one, I followed his work because it's so unique and cool. I've been blessed to be able to actually go up to Washington where he's at and work with him, and it's the best thing I've ever done. And you know, I pretty much consult him with any sort of like big decisions that
Right.
I, you know, might want to do, and ask him if it's, you know, is this what I should do? You know,
Right.
he'll tell me, you know.
Yeah, I get it completely. I was that way with my mentors, and I actually got to have a nice sit down with my very first mentor and knife teacher at the recent Blade Show West. So that was
That's
pretty
cool.
cool. Every knife maker has it. What is your favorite part of knife making?
Probably forging the Damascus when I make different patterns and stuff. I mean, it's exciting. I mean, it's kind of grueling. Some of these billets are, you know, I think they're probably 30 pounds. But you know, it's the most physically demanding part, but it's also, to me, like the most exciting part. Although, you know, followed closely by, you know, like the grinding and etching and all that stuff. But it's when it comes together that, you know, I really enjoy that.
Have you ever contemplated making a sword?
Oh yeah, I'd love to make a sword. I was talking to, are you familiar with Kevin Cashin?
Yes.
And his work, you know, does a lot of really beautiful historical swords and things like that. And I talked to him for a couple hours at Blade Show in Atlanta, and he said to me, he said, you know, most of the swords out there that I see, he's like, there's a lot of swords in this room. He goes, I call them sword-shaped objects. He said, you know, a lot of people think a sword is just like a knife's bigger brother.
Right.
And he said, it's not. He said, you have
No.
to take everything you know about knife making, chuck it out the window, and learn how to make swords. And that was a little bit intimidating. You know, it's just like,
Right.
well, maybe I'll like hold off on that. I'd love to go and learn from Kevin, because I mean, I think he and Casey Lund,
Yes.
he's, you know, they're probably the two best swordsmiths, certainly that I know, and maybe anywhere really.
Yeah, Casey's awesome. Kevin's awesome. Another one, should you get a chance to meet him, is Vince Evans.
Oh yeah,
If you
Vince.
can talk to him.
I hate to say that I forgot about Vince Evans. I have had a chance to meet him, not really talk to him a lot, but I've been at shows where he's exhibiting his stuff, and it's really amazing.
Right.
I mean, historically.
You think we can have a chance to see some of your knives
Sure.
here before we leave today?
I have a few. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So why don't we pull some of your stuff out here, and we'll get it set up so we can show the audience, and you can talk a little bit about exactly what you do.
Okay. Sounds great.
All right. All right, Trevor, you got some beautiful knives here on the table. Would you care to tell me about any of these, or have anyone you want to show off?
Well, this one here, this is I love this knife. This one is the kind of stuff I really like to make. This is a 10-inch mosaic Damascus explosion pattern recurve fighter. It has matching explosion pattern S-guard, stainless steel spacer, and the handle material is dyed and stabilized buckeye burl. It has a hand-peened silver pin.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
The Damascus on this is just gorgeous.
Thank you. Yes, this one won an award for Best Damascus at Blade Show West last year in 2023. The award was handed to me, and one of the judges was Steve Schwarzer, who he's one of the kings of Damascus.
Right.
And for him to say this was the best Damascus was really an honor for me. It was
Very
it was
nice.
something.
Yeah, that contrast between the bright steel and, I mean, that is almost a perfect black on the dark edge.
Thank you. Yeah, this one came out good. Actually, this is a knife that I made. I take a course. Kyle Royer has a thing called Knife Maker Plus, and this was one of the knives that we made. And I had occasion to see Kyle at a show where he had a table and I had a table, and I said, "Hey, I got this knife that I made from your course," and he's like, "Well, hey, I'd love to see it." And he came over and he looked at it, and he said, he was looking at it for like an hour, and I had another one that sold already, but he said, "How did you do this?" And I said, "Well, I did what you said." So this etch came out exceptional for reasons that I'm not sure that I can replicate, but it really did come out nice.
Beautiful. Okay, so what next?
This one here, I actually, this one is really cool because this handle material is mammoth ivory. It's my first time ever working with mammoth ivory, and I was incredibly nervous because it's real expensive. I mean, a piece of this, I think this was like $250 for this handle, and I was just so happy because it came out so pretty. I mean, it shined up and polished really, really nice. This is, I do a lot of, it's this feather Damascus. 1084 and 5920 are the steels, and I make a lot of feather Damascus. It's a little bit different, you know. I try to make it a little bit different every time. So this has alternating straight layers and W pattern layers with little sandwiched 5920 and 1084 in between each, and it came out really, really nice.
It's just beautiful. I mean, the feather pattern is so delicate. And that mammoth ivory, this is a cross-sectional cut of the mammoth, correct?
It is, yes.
Yeah, and with those fracture lines, it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, it came out really, really nice. I mean, I'm just so happy with the finish on it.
Just beautiful. And that your forged bolster area here, I mean, that is just a very elegant shape.
Thank you. This is something, I mentioned David Lish earlier. He's one of my mentors. When I worked with him, he makes knives a lot like this, and that's where I picked up integral bolster forging in general from David.
Just beautiful. Okay, and is there another one that you would like to show us?
Well, there's this one. This is a San Mai chef's knife, integral bolster. It has a Hitachi white paper #1, which is a Japanese, it's extremely high carbon, clean steel, they call it. It takes a very high hardness. This rock welds out above 65 after temper, which I have a Rockwell file that goes up to 65, and it skates on it like glass. It achieves a very keen edge with that kind of hardness.
I can actually feel that. I'm a little nervous with my finger at the tip here,
yeah,
because I can feel it wanting to bite on my skin. Now this is, like you said, it's a San Mai, so it's a 3-layer steel, and this outer layer is a Damascus.
It's a 120 layer random pattern Damascus with the nickel shim in between to prevent carbon migration, and it also looks cool.
Very nice, and I love the contrast with that dark etch on the white steel.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's the really cool thing about Damascus. When you make it and you finally etch it, you know, it's different every time. Like you said earlier, I mean, each one of these knives is unique.
Right.
You know, I couldn't make two exactly the same if I tried. I mean, I can get the shape down, but the Damascus pattern, it is what it is, and it's different every time, and it's just so cool when you get it out of the etch and you see what it's going to finally look like. And
this is an ironwood burl for the handle?
It is. It's ironwood burl from Arizona Ironwood.
I bet you just loved drilling out the tang slot.
I do. I have a thing. I learned it from another maker. It's a specific kind of end mill. It's really, really long that I used to bore out the things. It was, believe me, broaching something like this with a hand broach it's maddening.
Yes, just beautiful. And I'm about ready to get that edge off my finger before I end up bleeding all over your table.
Yeah, I usually have Band-Aids on the table at the show just in case something happens. All
right, so what do you have next for us?
Here's some of the stock removal stuff that I do.
Okay.
This
looks like a nice tactical design.
It is. I love this design. I mean, I like recurve stuff. I love false edge stuff, and like skull basher and everything. It's just like I said earlier, I like knives that were meant to be weapons because there's so much about them that looks cool, as opposed to like the utilitarian tool knives that you see a lot of,
And what steel is this in?
This is a 5160.
5160. So even your tactical stuff is high carbon.
It is.
Very nice. You don't see that every day. And what kind of micarta are you using here?
This one they call it a natural and red, and this is just a black This is all linen micarta.
Okay. Beautiful. And what next?
And then I have this one. This is another design that I really like. I mean, I like everything that I make. You know,
Of
otherwise
course.
I wouldn't make it.
Right.
But I think in terms of usability, carryability, and stuff like that of the knives that I make, this one probably is at the top of that.
I love the micarta on this because it has almost a camo look to it.
That's what they call it. They call it camo. It's it's either burlap or
Looks like
canvas micarta, in 3 different colors, in natural, in green, and black.
All right.
And you get this sort of camo look.
And it looks like you're using composite pins on these rather
Black
than
micarta pins.
black micarta pins. Very cool. It just adds a little extra without having that bright pin stock in there. It kind of carries on.
It also grinds really well and hand sands really well. Sometimes when you use like metal pins and wood and stuff like that,
you get the proud spot.
right, and it's a little bit difficult to get rid of it. So yeah, the canvas pins work really, really well. Or the micarta pins. Actually, I think they're linen. Micarta.
Very nice. And just a nice little harpoon clip point there.
Yeah, I love that.
Very clean
I put that on
grinds.
any knife that I can. So.
Very nice. So I hear we have a kind of significant knife on the table here.
Well, I have one knife left from my journeyman set, and that would be this one. I made 2 hunters, a large Bowie knife, a smaller Bowie knife like a gentleman's best Bowie, and a chef's knife for my journeyman set. And at the time when all the other ones sold, I hadn't made a sheath for this one. Yeah, but I'm happy to keep one, at least one.
Oh, you have to.
You know,
Because, I mean, that's a significant step. And what's the handle material on this one?
this well, the blade is 1084. It has a dome spine, stainless steel guard, and this is a dyed stabilized maple burl handle and a hand hammered peen silver pin.
Beautiful. And this is a pretty thick blade stock. That's what, 1/4 inch or 200 thousandths?
At the base. I mean, I believe it was probably a 1/4 inch when I started forging it. It's probably slightly less than that now, due to surface grinding and things. But yeah, for the most part, 1/4 inch. Yeah.
Very nice. Gorgeous knife. Beautiful satin finish on that. So, a little birdie tells me, we were speaking earlier about folders. You've actually made your first folder.
Yes,
or
I did.
it's in progress or something like that.
I actually have it right here. I carry it with me. It's fun to play with it. Here, it's a Barlow style folder. It's all stainless. This is 154 cm and with 416 bolsters. It's integral bolster with carbon fiber and silver pins.
Very nice.
These are all hand hammered pins, so when I finally finish it, you won't see any of these. Well, you won't see this anyway.
Right. It'll blend in.
Right.
Beautiful. And it's a slip joint, so there's no lock. Really nice half stop there, so people can see. It just wants to pause, that way it doesn't snap down on your fingers.
Yes,
And
this was a class that we did with Mike Vagnino, and he said that the spring should be flush with the spine of the handle in all positions, open, closed, and half stop. So it's just one of the things that I think.
Beautiful. So this is one you're going to keep, right? You
Yes,
aren't going to sell this one?
That, yeah.
Yeah. Very nice. All right, Trevor, you do beautiful work. And I mean, you can really see the time and talent that you put into the knives. They're really, truly something spectacular.
Thank you.
So with that said, if one of our viewers wanted to reach out and contact you about an order or buy something that you have available, where can they do that?
The best place to contact me is probably on Instagram. I get those messages quickly and I can respond quickly. My Instagram is at TJ Knives. That's T.J.Knives on Instagram.
And do you have a Facebook? Or?
I do have a Facebook. It's TJ Morgan on Facebook.
All right. And you can also find examples of Trevor's work on our website, legionsteelknives.com. You'll want to go to our menu, select brands, and you'll find Trevor's work there. We have several of his knives available for sale. You can have one yourself. We're also going to have the link to his Instagram and his Facebook right there on his page under brands. So go check him out. Who knows? A knife might be in your future, and it might be one of Trevor's. Now, speaking of Instagram, you're holding a giveaway there, aren't you?
I am.
All right.
We're giving away this knife. It's an integral bolster Sanmai chef's knife, approximately 9.5 inches long.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. It's Sanmai clad with 1084 and 15N20 Damascus. The core steel is Hitachi white paper #1, which is a great steel for chef's knife. It's known for its ability. It gets really hard. This is above 65 Rockwell.
Wow.
So it takes a very keen edge, and it holds an edge for quite a while. But you can sharpen it, unlike
Awesome.
some of the boutique super steels.
So what are the rules for the giveaway?
Oh yeah, let me check out my Instagram here so I can make sure to get them right. Okay, so the deadline to enter this giveaway is December 15th by 6 p.m. Pacific time, and we'll select a winner that night. The rules are, you have to follow my Instagram at tjknives, t.j.knives. You have to like the original giveaway post. You have to tag 3 people in the comments of the original post, and you have to share a post on your Instagram feed about the giveaway.
All right.
That's it.
That sounds easy enough. That sounds like somebody is going to be lucky and have an amazing Christmas winning this beautiful piece.
Yeah, and this is my first giveaway, so I wanted to give away something that's really indicative of the things that I make, and something, pretty nice.
Well, this is, like I said, this is going to be a very generous giveaway.
Thank you.
Let me open this up for you here so we can keep that nice and safe.
I got it.
Now, I want to thank you for taking the time with us here in your shop and showing us around, showing us a little bit of what you do. We really appreciate it. Makers like you make these videos possible and allow us to spread the art of knife making to all the world and all the YouTube viewers that are out there. So thank you again for that.
Thank you guys. It was fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And good luck to you with your journey in knife making. And for all of you viewing at home, we'll see you next time in the shop.